Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable.
Hello and welcome to the 10th edition of the Emerging India series presented by ICICI Bank and CNBC TV18, where we put the spotlight on the contribution of SMEs to the Indian economy. Now, as a build-up to the Emerging India Awards, this week we're looking at the need for SMEs to scale up their businesses and the factors that need to be taken into consideration.
The Indian SME sector has been a dynamic sector for the Indian economy, contributing significantly to the socio-economic growth of the country. But augmented growth for these businesses can only be achieved when Indian SMEs start differentiating themselves to beat competition. To gain that competitive edge, it is important for small and medium enterprises to innovate and diversify to scale up their operations of products and services. Skill development, use of modern technology, and need for innovation are just some of the factors that SMEs need to take into account when they consider scaling up their businesses.
This week on the Emerging India series, we bring on board the chairman of Marico Limited, Mariwala, to discuss the factors that SMEs need to keep in mind when they consider scaling up their businesses.
The chairman of Marico Limited, Mariwala, over 3 decades has transformed a traditional commodity-driven business into a leading consumer products and services company in the beauty and wellness space.
If I look back at my own business journey, I started when the business size was very small, many years back. We were able to scale up from 50 lakhs to today this year we'll do more than 6,000 crores. That journey, I realized that as you grow, you have to change. And the biggest change has to come at the entrepreneurial end.
His entrepreneurial passion encouraged him to establish Ascent, a foundation that identifies growth stage entrepreneurs with potential and helps them scale up their businesses.
Entrepreneurs add a lot of value to all the stakeholders, and I said that if I can help entrepreneurs scale up, because this is something which I have done. I like to be involved in whatever I give back, and time is something which I can give. So can I actually create a system where I help other entrepreneurs scale up based on my own personal experiences? And I also realized that many entrepreneurs had very good ideas, they had great concepts, but many times they were struggling to scale up.
Speaking to us this week about the challenges faced by SMEs when they consider scaling up their businesses is Smriti Dalvi, the founder of the flower and gifts delivery chain Florista.
After a 14-year stint in the IT industry, Smriti Dalvi was bitten by the entrepreneurial bug, and in 2003, she decided to start the fresh flowers and gifts e-commerce chain Florista.
We started Florista primarily to capture the gifting space in India, especially for flowers and associated gifts, and offering customers the convenience of ordering and giving the recipients an experience of receiving beautiful products such as flowers.
Florista is a growth stage company having over 15 franchised retail outlets in major Indian cities with delivery networks that span 200 cities in India and over 100 countries across the world. Smriti has been looking to scale up the business into complementary gifts like fragrances and home decor, enabling opportunities in vertical growth integration, but has been faced with many hurdles.
Looking at scaling up, we know we have not yet tapped into the potential of newer markets within the country. That is one aspect that we would be definitely looking at, and increasing the delivery presence in our country. And globally, we could look at expanding into markets where there's Indian NRIs present for showcasing Indian homegrown flowers such as Marico, tube roses, which is Rajnikanta, and having Indian contemporary gifts which could also be showcased within the same store.
One of the many concerns for businesses such as Florista is to differentiate between scaling up their core business or diversifying into associated products.
On that note, it's time for a short break. On the other side, I'm in conversation with the chairman of Marico Limited, Mariwala. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Emerging India series, and I'm now in conversation with the Chairman and Managing Director of Marico and also the founder of the Ascent Foundation, Mr. Mariwala. Sir, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
What are some of the important things that SMEs should keep in mind when they are looking to scale up?
So I think first of all the SMEs should have what I call right to win. So in a very competitive environment, it's very important that you create a certain differentiation in either in your business model or in your product or in the way you are giving services if you are a services business, which enables you to win in the marketplace. So I think you need to find out why are you winning in the marketplace. So I think the key thing is how do you create that right to win and how do you sustain that right to win by becoming better in that particular area.
Because there are a lot of, external factors by way of like competition from large players, regulations in India.
So then what are the advantages you have compared to somebody else?
True.
And I think you have to dig deep in terms of finding out what are the advantages you can bring to the table which will make your business far more successful than somebody else.
When you talk about the advantages, innovation helps a lot, changing business model. Your advice to SMEs on how they can use this to kind of step up.
Innovation helps create right to win, and innovation can happen in any field. It can happen in a service industry, it can happen in a manufacturing industry, it can happen in a product. We innovated many years back in a product like coconut oil, but we use packaging as a route to innovate. So I think you have to find from the consumer what can be different, do some consumer insighting, find from the technology partners how can technology help you to innovate, and continuously go on innovating. It's just not one innovation which you do. I think you have to continue, because by the time you innovate, somebody else will copy. So you have to be 2 steps ahead. So how do you go on innovating on a perpetual basis? I think that is the biggest challenge in terms of creating a right to win.
So when they get to the next step, now when they want to start scaling up, there is one option is, okay, in my same business, I've upped the game. And there is also the option of diversification. It's a tough call. How do you advise someone that, go down this way?
So I'm a strong believer in doing a few things, but do them well. And I think you need to find the core of the business where you are good at. So if you have a certain core of the business where you're good at and where you have created a certain right to win, and if there are opportunities to grow in that particular business, I think it's better to be focused in that particular business and make it much larger.
Right.
You can also say that no, I will look at a geographical expansion. The same business, I say coconut oil, I do it in India, we did it in Bangladesh. So you can do a geographical expansion. Or you can go to a completely unrelated business. In our case, we went into Kaya, which was unrelated. But we reached a certain scale when we said that now we want to do something different. So I think a lot depends on what is the potential for your current business on a sustainable basis. You have a right to win in that. And given an option, I would opt for that particular option if that business is profitable, if there are growth opportunities, and if you have a strong right to win, to grow in that core business. And then there are certain other businesses which are known as adjacencies to the core. So this is the core and they are nearby the core. So I think you should look at some other businesses rather than going into completely different business, because going into a new business means you will go through a huge learning curve. You don't have the domain knowledge. I'm not saying you should not look at that, but given an option, if there are enough opportunities to grow in your core or near your core businesses, I would pursue that as a first option.
Today, a lot of SMEs are second, third generation family businesses. In India especially, family businesses are really strong. How should those businesses be treated to be handled differently so that their scale up still happens in a comfortable way?
Normally when the next generation comes in any business, there is a discontinuity because they come in at a much younger age. They bring in new thoughts. They have a different educational backgrounds. They have a different orientation to how the business should be done. And I think that's the time when organizations have to be alive that, okay, there is some discontinuity happening. So I think there has to be some way to integrate the old and the new. And youngsters will bring in some new thinking, some new blood, and they will ask for some changes. The elders may resist that change or may embrace that change. So I think depending on the business and depending on what comes on table, I think the organizations have to learn to live with how do you integrate the old and the new in terms of age difference, and ensure that I think whatever youngsters bring to the table in terms of new ideas, new issues are addressed properly. If need be, take some experiments, because I think youngsters need to be given some free space, and they should not fear failures, and they should be willing to experiment, because only when you fail you learn. And in any person's journey, any successful person's journey, you will have multiple failures.
Mr. Mariwala, when SMEs need to scale up, one big thing is the capital. That's a big concern for them. How should they address it?
So I believe that every organization has this issue of resources. You have financial resources, you have human resources, you have technological resources. So it's a challenge. Even in terms of human resources, you have a challenge to attract the right talent. So I think you have to take it as a challenge, first of all. Having said that, you need to have a business proposition which is an attractive business proposition. I believe that if you have an attractive business proposition, as of today, there are many options which are available to an entrepreneur. So depending on the size of your business, you can go to a bank, you can go to a seed fund, you can go to a venture capitalist, you can go to a private equity player, or you can go public. And you should be clear what are your fund needs and what is your business model which you can leverage. And if you have the right business model and if you package it well, I believe that funding is not a constraint, because if I talk to a private equity guys or some seed fund, the challenge to many of them is that I can't find good businesses to fund. So there is a gap. People want to give money, but they are not able to find the right businesses, or there are governance issues. So you need to have very high degrees of governance, integrity, which somebody can trust, and backed it by a very sound business proposition.
So in about, I think a couple of years ago, you founded the Ascent Foundation with an aim to help these SMEs. Do you think there's a need now for more and more such foundations to come up?
See, absolutely. I think because what we are trying to do in Ascent is to create an ecosystem of entrepreneurs who interact with each other and have a lot of peer learning. So there is a very strong model of what we call trust groups, and where they meet every month for 3 to 4 hours and learn from each other. In addition to that, we also have many other initiatives like webinars, seminars, huddle sessions. On portal, there is a lot of data. So I think what we are trying to do through Ascent is to create the right ecosystem where if the entrepreneur wants to scale up, he can leverage his trust groups, he can leverage some of our events or webinars and learn from that. Ultimately, onus of that expansion or scaling up will depend on the entrepreneurs. All we can do is we can help him, we can guide him, but ultimate risk and ultimate onus would depend on the entrepreneur.
Well, on that note, it's time for a short break, but on the other side, Mr. Mariwala and me are in conversation with Smriti Dalvi, the founder of Florista. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Emerging India series, and now joining Mr. Mariwala and me is the founder of Florista, Smriti Dalvi. Smriti, welcome to the show. So, Mr. Mariwala here is your mentor for this episode, so let's start off. What are your questions for him?
Well, I think the first question that I should ask Mr. Mariwala is recruiting key talent. That's been a challenge, especially now when we are on a phase of exponential growth and we have aggressive growth plans. That's when we're actually scouting for top talent. And we realize that they're more tuned to moving towards the newly hyper-funded startups or top brands. How do we come across or get over this?
I think this is a challenge which we at Marico also face. So you're not the only person who's facing the challenge. I fully agree with you that there is a war for talent and war for good talent, and I would say that good talent and average talent, there is a big difference in terms of deliverables and the impact it can create. So I need not say more that you should recruit good talent, but it really pays off by paying higher also. But the clearly key thing is, what is your employee value proposition? What are you offering to the employee or a potential employee which will attract them to you? It could be financial, it could be some career prospects, it could be newer experiences, it could be learning, but if you really develop a strong employee value proposition and sell that employee value proposition to your potential employees, if they want to check back with one of your existing employees, they should be talking the same language as what you are selling. Or if somebody has left you and check the reference, then the ex-employee also should be talking the same language. That this company has a good employee value proposition, and it provides me opportunities in 1, 2, 3, 4 areas. So I think the key thing is to go deeper and get insights. What are you offering which is different? And I think if you're not able to get that insight of what is different, then you need to develop that. And depending on your business, one can develop the employee value proposition which is differentiated. That by itself will not mean that you're going to attract talent, but that is the first step. After that, you have to sell that employee value proposition to the potential recruitment options, to the headhunters you're going to, and I think that's how you attract good quality inputs in terms of the applications you get in.
Okay.
Mr. Mariwala, one other concern that SMEs very often have is the cash flow. I believe Smriti had a question on those lines also.
Is there any formulae where SMEs should be disciplined to save for a rainy day, or should they use the cash flow for immediate business? Because we have not been able to do that.
I think it depends on the business, because how steady is your business, how cyclical is your business. If your business is cyclical, if you have different periods of boom and bust, if there are seasonal variations, then you have to provide for the downturn. If you're not cyclical, the need to keep a certain reserve money for the rainy day will be lesser. But if you're highly cyclical, today for an FMCG, it's perceived as a defensive sector. So FMCG business will not be cyclical. People will go on using hair oils, cooking oils every month. So I know that it's not going to be a huge up and down kind of a situation as far as the business cycle is concerned. So again, to sum up, I would say you need to project yourself in terms of how vulnerable are you in the industry you are in terms of cycles, and also in your own journey. I mean, all of a sudden you may get disrupted tomorrow by competition. Business may not be cyclical, but you get disrupted through some competitor who is undercutting you. So I think you have to arrive at a judgment in terms of what should be the reserves you need to keep to tide over that difficult period. And it's a judgment arrived at on the basis of overall competitive environment in the industry and cycles the sector is facing.
Mr. Mariwala, actually Smriti had one question about expanding to newer geographies. So Smriti, if you'd like to take that.
Mr. Mariwala, we were thinking of expanding to countries where there's a large presence of Indian diaspora. So do you think that makes sense to see global audience?
So why would you want to expand to countries because you're offering something which is Indian, which is different?
There are two things. One is for inbound orders, because these are people who have settled out of the country and they have families here.
Okay.
So tapping them to gift into India. And secondly, we've been having inquiries, though trickling, for opening franchise stores in countries where there's NRI population, densely populated.
No, I think the whole objective is again for that particular NRIs to gift something in India. Is that the connection?
That is one part of it. And secondly, so we were just exploring these options. Which one do you think? Or do you think it is not the right time?
What is the potential now? Are you fully, shall I say, penetrated or fully exploited the potential in India or in Bombay where you are present?
No, not yet. We have not yet exploited India yet.
So I think you need to make choices. Ultimately in any expansion there is choice making or any strategy. So what are the options available to you, whether to expand in smaller cities in India or whether to go abroad and tap the Indian population or to do both? Because this is a different ballgame.
Yes.
And you will go through a learning curve.
Yes.
Relatively, if you are present in 200 cities in India, it's easier to succeed in those markets because you understand India.
Right.
And I think you need a certain minimum scale, because just managing that business may be difficult. So in that context, maybe franchising could be an option you can evaluate. You are entering into a new market, a different business model which you're not experienced in. And my advice would be first to evaluate what is the traction for your product first, and then if need be prototype that in a market which is nearby.
Mr. Mariwala, what are the key qualities of a successful entrepreneur?
So I think the first thing is to create the right business model which has the right to win on a sustainable basis. I don't want to win today and fall tomorrow. So can I go on improving on my business model and be 2 steps ahead of competition? So very clearly identifying what is the right to win and execute, And in arriving at the right to win, you need to think strategically. What is my business and what it should be? And the question which you were asking earlier, whether I should expand India, abroad, these are all strategic questions. You need to make the right choices where you want to go. Having done that, made the right choices, you need to have the right execution. So how is your quality of flowers? Are you making the best flower arrangements? Are you delivering on time? How is your pricing? Are you able to offer some value addition in just flowers, some other things which go with flowers? So I would say that how do you execute also plays a very important role. So in strategizing and executing, I think people play an important role. So you need to have the right talent, ability to attract talent and retain talent plays a very important role. And finally, I think it also means that your mindset should be growth oriented and you are managing your financials. Sometimes the business can have downturns. So how are you able to overcome that adversity and ensure that you are in business on a long-term basis, on a long-term, profitable, sustainable growth basis?
On that note, thank you so much, Mr. Mariwala, for coming on board as a mentor. Thank you, Smriti, for coming on board. And thank you so much for watching the show. We hope we've been able to provide you with some better insights on how SMEs can scale up. From the entire team, many thanks for watching.
Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable.